What Dale Earnhardt Jr. never forgot about his dad. There are places in this world that don't just witness history, they make it. They take the greatest men who ever walked into them, and they decide what those men become. Daytona has done this for decades. It made Dale Earnhardt Sr. into something the sport had never seen before. A man so dominant, so fierce, so utterly himself on a racetrack that the whole of American motorsport organized itself around him. And then, on a Sunday afternoon in February, it stripped him away. What nobody fully grasps, even now more than 2 decades later, is what Daytona did to the son he left behind, and what that son chose to do about it. This is not just a story about a crash. It is a story about a boy who grew up in the shadow of a legend, and the one thing that anchored him when the legend was gone. To understand what happened between a father and a son at Daytona, you first have to understand what Daytona is. Not what it looks like on television, what it means. 2.5 miles of asphalt, banked at 31 degrees in the corners. On a clear day, if you stand at turn 1 and look toward turn 3, the track curves away so steeply it disappears below the horizon. NASCAR drivers call a lot of tracks special. Daytona isn't special. Daytona is different in kind. There is a saying in racing that every driver learns eventually. You can be the best driver in the world, and Daytona doesn't care. It has humbled champions. It has ended careers. And for one family, the most famous family NASCAR ever produced, it became the place where everything was both given and taken away. Ralph Dale Earnhardt grew up poor in Kannapolis, North Carolina. He dropped out of school in the 9th grade to race cars. His own father, Ralph Sr., was a racer too, a short-track legend who won over 350 NASCAR races across his career. He died of a heart attack in 1973, at 45 years old, while working in his garage at home. Dale Earnhardt looked at that grief and decided to go faster. It was the only answer he knew. Ralph Dale Earnhardt Jr. was born in 1974. His parents divorced when he was 3. He didn't grow up with his father. He grew up watching his father, the way most of America did, on television, in magazines, through the legend that built itself around the black number 3. Think about what that means. Your father is one of the most famous athletes in the country, and you barely know him. By the time Junior was old enough to understand who his father was, Dale Sr. was already a force of nature. 7 Winston Cup championships, 76 Cup Series victories, a driving style that was not merely aggressive, it was personal, like he was settling a score with every lap. Other drivers had talent. Dale Earnhardt had will. He would lean on a car, push it, nudge it, move it. Not maliciously, his defenders always said, but purposefully. He was playing a game of physics that no one else fully understood. And Daytona was the one track that never fully surrendered to him. Between 1979 and 1997, across 18 years, Dale Earnhardt started the Daytona 500 every single time. He led laps, he dominated stretches, and he lost. Again and again and again. People started calling it a curse. Dale Sr. never used that word. But there was something in his face after each February that didn't look like peace. Somewhere in the stands, or at home in North Carolina, a teenage boy named Dale Jr. was watching, learning what it looked like to want something that badly, and not quite get it. Then came 1998. Dale Earnhardt Sr. won his first Daytona 500 in 1998. He was 46 years old. It was his 20th attempt. What happened next was one of the most human moments in the history of American sport. The entire pit road, mechanics, crew chiefs, officials, rival teams' wives and crews, lined up along the apron of the track. And when Dale Earnhardt drove past them, alone in the black Narsa, they reached out their hands, and he drove slowly down that line, collecting every single one. Standing in victory lane afterward, he said he could barely believe it. 20 years of trying, and the track had finally given it to him. The relief in his voice was unmistakable. Dale Jr. was 23 years old that day. He was racing in the Busch Series, trying to prove he was more than just his father's name on a car, and he watched his dad win Daytona. He said later it was one of the best days of his life. He meant it. But here is what makes that win devastating in retrospect. 1998 was the only time Dale Earnhardt Sr. won the Daytona 500. He would start it 3 more times. He never celebrated like that again. February 18, 2001. The day starts like a celebration. Dale Earnhardt Jr., now in the Cup Series, now a full-fledged NASCAR driver, is racing with his father. Not against him. With him. On the same track, the same race, at the same time. For a while, on the early laps, they run near each other. A father and his son, at 190 miles per hour, competing together in the biggest race in America. There are 43 drivers in that field. But for one family, there are really only 2. Late in the race, Junior is out front. His father's teammate, Michael Waltrip, is leading, and Dale Sr. is running third, blocking for them, protecting his son, protecting his team, doing what fathers do. On the final lap, heading into turn 4, Dale Sr.'s black number 3 made contact with another car. The car hit the wall and slid down the banking into the infield. To most people watching, it looked like dozens of other crashes from that afternoon. Up front, Michael Waltrip crossed the finish line first, his first Cup Series win. Dale Earnhardt Jr. crossed second. A father-son team won 2. It should have been the perfect day. But the number 3 wasn't moving, and the people who knew, the ones with radios, the ones in the pits, their faces changed. Dale Earnhardt Sr. died from injuries sustained in that crash. He was 49 years old. His son had just finished second at Daytona, and he didn't know yet. The grief that followed was unlike anything NASCAR had experienced. More than 17 million people had been watching that race on television. Every one of them remembered exactly where they were when they found out. Dale Earnhardt wasn't just a driver. He was the sport's soul, its blue-collar heart, its defiant spirit, the proof that you could come from nothing and become everything. Dale Jr. was 26 years old. He would later describe that period as existing in a fog. You move, you speak, you attend the funeral, you go through the motions of living. But you are not quite there. What struck people who knew Junior in those months was how quiet he became. Dale Sr. had been many things in his life. Demanding, competitive, formidable in ways that kept people at a distance. But in those final years, those who knew the family described him as a man making a genuine effort to close the distance between himself and his son. They had been getting closer. And then Daytona took that too. There is a particular cruelty to losing someone right when you are finally finding them. You don't just grieve the person you had. You grieve the relationship you were going to have, the conversations that would never happen, the things that would never get said. 6 weeks after the crash, Dale Jr. got back in a car. He had to. Not because anyone forced him, because he needed to. Because the car was the only place he and his father had ever truly understood each other without words. He won races. He built a following that dwarfed almost anyone else in the sport. From 2003 through the final year of his career, Junior won NASCAR's Most Popular Driver Award 15 consecutive times. A record streak. Fans didn't love him because he won the most championships. He didn't. They loved him because they could see the weight he was carrying, and they recognized it. But the one thing he couldn't outrun, the one thing that sat in the back of his mind every February, was Daytona. He went back every year, the track where his father died, the track where he'd finished second while his dad was still in the wreckage. And every year, he strapped in and went 200 miles an hour around the same asphalt. Because that is what racers do. For Junior, though, the relationship was more complicated than that. He spoke about it in the months after the crash with a clarity that surprised people. He had gone back to Daytona alone before a race that summer, hadn't been there since February, since his father died, and sat near the spot where the number 3 had come to rest, just to see how it felt. He said afterward that what he understood in that moment was something he would carry for the rest of his career. The track hadn't done anything to his father. His father had loved this place. So he decided, deliberately, that he was going to stay in love with it too. That he was going to keep coming back, keep trying, keep adding to what his father had started there. February 15th, 2004, 3 years after the crash, Dale Earnhardt Jr. lines up for the Daytona 500. He is 29 years old, and somewhere in the fiber and marrow of who he is carrying unfinished business that isn't entirely his own. Something was different in 2004. Junior had spent 3 years processing, in conversation, in reflection, in the private work of becoming someone after that kind of loss. And somewhere in that processing, he had found the thing his father actually left him. Not a trophy, not a car, a way of thinking about this track. The 2004 Daytona 500 was not a clean race. There were crashes, caution flags, lid changes. What Dale Earnhardt Jr. did was almost surgical. He stayed out of trouble. He conserved equipment. He thought about the end. As the laps wound down, he moved through the field. The grandstands began to understand what was happening. The weight of the moment spread through the crowd the way it does when something genuinely rare is unfolding in front of you. On the final laps, Dale Earnhardt Jr. took the lead, and he held it. Through turn 1, through turn 2, down the backstretch, through turn 3 and turn 4, the same turn 4. Dale Earnhardt Jr. won the 2004 Daytona 500. He described what he felt in the moments after as relief. Not elation in the usual sense. Relief. The kind of release that only comes after something has been weighing on you for a very long time. He climbed out of the car, and he stood on the banking of the track and pointed skyward. Not in victory lane, on the banking. Alone in the noise, turning towards something no one else could see. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. In the years that followed, Junior spoke, often and with genuine honesty, about what his father had meant to him and about Daytona. He talked about how Dale Sr. had not been an easy man to know, how he showed love through doing, through putting you in a car, through sharing the sport, not through words. How Junior had spent years wanting something simpler, something softer. And how, in those last years before the crash, he'd finally started to get it. The thing Junior returned to, again and again, was a simple observation about his father's relationship with this track. Across 23 years, Dale Earnhardt Sr. started the Daytona 500 without missing once. He got knocked down by it. He lost here in ways that would have broken most men. And he came back. Every February, without fail. Junior said he knew his father still loved this place, wherever he was. That losing his life here had somehow brought the track closer to him, not pushed it away. That he had made a choice, a real, deliberate choice, to embrace Daytona rather than resent it. He said he wanted to win there, and he wanted to love coming there. Those things were not in conflict. They were the same thing. That choice is what the 2004 win was built on. Not anger, not revenge. Something quieter and harder than either of those things. Dale Earnhardt Jr. retired from full-time racing in 2017. He won 2 Daytona 500s, 2004 and 2014. He came close other times. Daytona was never fully conquered. It never is. What he carried out of the sport was something quieter than trophies, an understanding of what his father had actually given him. Dale Earnhardt Sr. was a complicated man. He wasn't the perfect father. He was fierce and demanding and hard to reach, but he also spent his whole career teaching, through action, through racing, through the way he showed up at Daytona every February no matter what, that some things are worth the cost of being humbled, that you do not walk away from the things that are bigger than you. You show up. You give everything you have. You earn the right to be there. Junior became a father himself. When people ask what he hopes his kids know about their grandfather, the man in the black number 3, he doesn't talk about championships. He talks about showing up, about the example his father set, simply by refusing to stop trying. There is a phrase old-time NASCAR people use. They've said it for decades, through crashes and deaths and seasons and retirements. Daytona always wins. It's meant as a warning. Don't get too comfortable. Don't mistake one good run for mastery. This track has knocked down better men than you. But Dale Earnhardt Jr. has made his peace with what that phrase means, because he knows something about his father, something he watched across a lifetime of Februaries before he was old enough to race them himself. His father never stopped coming back, not after 18 years without a win, not after any of it. If Daytona always wins, then Daytona is always going to be there, which means there is always another chance. His father taught him that, not in words, in 23 years of showing up. Dale Earnhardt Sr., 1951-2001, 7-time NASCAR Winston Cup champion, Daytona 500 winner, 1998.